Hi there, Andrew Cressy is here with AudioBro. What you just heard right there was a quick musical example featuring our modern scoring strings scales articulations. These are 3 and 4 note scalar phrases that can be stitched together in our engine to form all sorts of longer phrases, sampled in various modes on all divisis of all the violins, violas, and cellos. And on the basses, we recorded 3 and 4 note major and minor runs. In this video, we're going to cover both scales and octave runs, what makes them different, and how to use them. Now, trying to incorporate scales and runs in MIDI mockups has always been very difficult and time-consuming, and usually they don't sound very good. But I think we have put some tools together for you that will make things much easier and better sounding, and I dare say, much more fun. Okay, so let's get started. You'll notice the octave runs tile here, and the scales tile here, and the respective articulation controls here. If you hold down a key on the octave runs, you'll get this type of articulation. So basically, your typical septuplet leading into a downbeat. The notation would look like this. And you can string them together like this. Now, if we switch over to the scales tile and play a note in its simplest form without any play assist modes, you'll get this. In this case, a 4-note scale. There are also 3-note triplet scales. But the best part is, our play assist engine can stitch them together depending on how you play them. What used to be a somewhat tedious and time-consuming MIDI editing endeavor can now be a lot more fun and gratifying. So let's go over these controls and see what we have. We'll start with the scales. When you are on the scales articulation, you'll notice its associated controls. Here we have the volume, the smooth knob that lets you control the phrasing of the scales, the key and tonality menus that let our engine know what key and mode you are in, and we're not just talking major and minor. As you can see, we have included all these different modes for those of you who like modal writing. Then we have the speed button. Our engine automatically syncs to tempo, and this control lets you choose double speed as well as its associated auto mode. That will choose the speed that sounds best at your current tempo. And then we have the scale direction, up and down, where you tell the engine what direction you want the scales to be played back in, and its associated drop-down menu where you can decide if you want to control it with a CC slider, velocity, inverted velocity, or alternate from the from to to note. Then we have the playback mode with a copious list of options for you to choose from. And finally, the destination accent and accent volume controls that let our engine know whether you want it to accent the last note of a phrase or not. Now, all these menus you see here are also controllable via CC. Notice these little drop-downs below the menus. These let you assign a CC to those menu items so you can control everything remotely. Okay, so how do you build scales? That's the best part. It's really easy. Basically, you choose your key. Here I'll choose C minor, and then I'll just play up the keyboard. Forte, mezzo piano, viola's forte, mezzo piano, cello's forte. Mezzo piano. Now, if you prefer a triplet feel, we can just change it to triplet diatonic and it will sound like this. It's just that easy. Now, to build these phrases, our engine combines, based on the key you're in, real scalar performances from this list right here. We did different permutations of whole and half step, 3 and 4 note phrases capable of creating phrases in any of the keys and modes, from major through Locrian. Furthermore, for added versatility, we recorded each one of these in 2 directions and at 2 round robins in multiple dynamics for each note start that we sampled. And don't forget, it was for each divisi as well. So as you can imagine, a tremendous amount of work and planning went into this. But thankfully, it's deceptively easy to use. Let's look at some of the play assist modes. You've already heard the 16th and triplet modes. We think these will be your go-to modes. You simply play the starting note of whatever mode you're in, and our engine will trigger its diatonic scale segment. But we have other modes that have different strengths. We have an Octave Run Scales mode, where you simply play a note, or 2, or however many you want, and the engine will put together a 2-beat diatonic octave run in the key you are in. Note that these are 2-beat runs, 2 sets of 4 16th notes combined like this. Notice how the runs stay diatonic to the key you're in. Now, these are different from our pre-recorded full octave runs here, which are your typical 1-beat septuplet runs. These are septuplets leading into an 8th note downbeat in the next measure, whereas these scalar octave runs are 2-beat octave runs. Now, let's look at the start and play assist mode. This is another very easy mode to use. Simply play the starting note of your scale and then the ending note. As soon as you play your ending note, the scale will play through all the notes diatonically from start to end, in the direction of the order in which you played your 2 notes. Let's listen. It's that simple. Now we come to 2 different hold modes. We have chromatic and diatonic. Again, these are super easy modes to use. Basically, hold down the note, and as long as you hold the note, it will play a scale. Let's listen to the chromatic mode. Now let's listen to the diatonic mode. Now I think this is a good point to get more into detail about what this smooth knob does. This knob in essence changes the attack and release of the runs so that they flow to your liking. Sometimes you want the starts of the 3 and 4 note groupings to be more pronounced, as if the players were accenting the beginning of the 3 and 4 note phrases. Like this, you can hear the defined attack of the 4 note phrase. Now listen as I turn the smooth knob up. The attacks of the phrases get blurred. So this smooth knob has a dual purpose. It will also shape the endings of the 3 and 4 note phrases. Depending on the phrasing you want, you can use this control to finesse your performance. Let's listen. Now would probably be a good time to remind you that everything you've been hearing has been played with all the divisis. However, we've recorded these per divisi, giving you huge control on how you want to layer these. Let's go to the ensemble page and just click on the solo button. It will play the first divisi. Let's listen to the different divisis being stacked using this downward diatonic held mode. Divisi 1 alone, notice how intimate it sounds. Now divisis 1 and 2. Now divisis 1, 2, and 3. And now divisis 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can hear how the string section grew and how they sounded bigger. So with our split divisi patches, you could have each divisi doing one of these runs in different directions at the same time, giving you vast amounts of control. Let's listen. Here I just played notes going up and down in different directions, nothing earth-shattering, but you get the idea. Okay, let's listen to the pre-recorded octave runs. These have fewer controls than the scales and are pretty easy to understand. Notice for the octave runs, you have these controls. The key control that you use to dictate the key, the mode button, when in diatonic, it will play the runs diatonically to the key you are in, and when it's off, it will force the runs to either be in all major or all minor, depending on the position of this slider. Of course, this up and down slider just dictates the direction of your octave runs. And lastly, we have the speed and sync controls that let you either sync to your DAW's tempo or manually control the tempo using the speed knob. And just like all the other articulations, we recorded these on all the violins, violas, and cellos. And just like the scales and the ostinatos, they will play in the key you are in and the tempo that you're at. Let's listen to the violins. Now violas. And now cellos. Lastly, for the basses, we did something a little different, since octave runs for basses are really not a very common articulation. Instead, we recorded 3- and 4-note runs landing on a target note that will be very useful for action and suspense scores. Let's listen. I often like to have them playing 1 octave apart. And remember, our auto divisi will keep the basses evenly balanced to their player count. And just like all the other articulations, you can switch between them in real time, so you can do phrases like this. Okay, well, I think that should do it. I think you should have a pretty good overview of the scales and the runs by now. It's easy to forget that all of these examples are using our divisi engine to maintain a balanced player count on all chords. We can't wait to hear in what creative ways you'll be using these tools in your projects. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.